Okay, we're just going to get started with another of the Active Travel Hub network webinars. Today's topic is about e-bike libraries. My name's Steve Willis. I work for the Stirling Active Travel Hub, and the schemes I'm talking about today cover both Stirling and Falkirk Active Travel Hubs, both part of Fourth Environment Link. The most obvious question before we go any further is, what is an e-bike library? Well, it's kind of self-describes itself really. It's a range of e-bikes that are available for the public to use. It came about through very informal conversation and meeting between staff from Energy Saving Trust and Fourth Environment Link about the loans that are available for people to borrow to get interest-free credit for buying an e-bike of their own. So that was discussed, as I say, very informally with staff from Fourth Environment Link, and it was agreed that the Falkirk and Stirling hubs could become referral centres, effectively offering a range of bikes to people for their use, just to see if they can, if an e-bike is going to work for them. And who's it aimed at? Well, we came up with a fairly simple definition of anyone who lives in the FK postcode area, which is a huge area. It covers all of Stirlingshire, all of Falkirk, and all of Clackmannanshire as well. So it's a big area of central Scotland. And we did actually extend it to people who work within that area as well, figuring that if they're using it within the area, it doesn't really matter if they're going home to somewhere else. So we've had a number of people from out with the area who are travelling to work within the area. So we've kept it fairly loose, but that gives you a workable definition anyway. They can borrow the bike for anywhere between 3 days and 3 weeks, and crucially, there's no charge, it's free. So that's obviously something that really attracts people. It's getting use of an e-bike for nothing for up to 3 weeks. The big idea is that we act as a referral centre for Home Energy Scotland. That's at the Stirling Hub and at the hub in Falkirk as well, for promoting e-bikes for ways that I'm sure you're all familiar with, about a fun, sustainable way to travel, increase activity and improve health. And also another thing is to promote the interest-free loans available from Energy Saving Trust. People's motivations to get an e-bike do vary hugely, so we try and cover all bases with in terms of the ranges and sizes of bike that we have on offer. So the bikes themselves, it was quite a long process to acquire the bikes in the first place and kind of work out what types of bike we were best to get. We have 9 bikes in total, 5 of which are a step-through frame, mostly quite small frame size. These are very versatile. Anyone can ride these, and they're especially good for anyone with mobility issues or learner cyclists, just because they're much easier to get on and off. We've got a couple of folding bikes as well. These have been quite popular, especially in Falkirk, so they're perfect for commuters. These are little EMU bikes, and we have 2 hybrid bikes as well, sort of near enough mountain bikes. They're both quite large frame sizes, so we've got a massive size range of frames so that we can hopefully suit most people. One of the bikes we do have has internal hub gears. I would definitely suggest people avoid this because it's just a bit of a nightmare from a maintenance point of view. And on the subject of maintenance, all but the folding bikes have Bosch mid-motors. So they're the most kind of efficient that we find, and they're also one of the easiest to service. So do bear that in mind if you're thinking of doing this yourself. All of the bikes have integrated mudguards, and they all have integrated lights as well. So they're kind of winter ready, as it were, which does make life a bit easier for the user. They're not having to think too much about that side of things. So as far as other kit that is offered to the customer coming in, we offer them a high-vis vest, we offer them a helmet. Both of these are optional. We don't specify that people have to use these things, but we do give them the option. We give them a lock. We've got really secure kryptonite lock with a cable that complies with our insurance requirements, and we'll cover that in a moment. Keys, obviously, for the lock and for the bike itself, so they can remove the battery. We make sure the battery goes out fully charged before the people leave. They obviously get the charger for that, and we'll leave them with any kind of active travel maps and other information relevant to where they live. Needless to say, this is all quite heavy and bulky, and every single time we tell people that they should bring a bag to take all this clobber away with them, but they very rarely do, so they end up stuffing it down their jumpers or fitting it into very tiny bags and things like that. But do try and encourage people to have something reasonably substantial to carry this amount of stuff away. So how it works, people find out about us through various different means. Of course, they might just see the hub itself. They might pop in. Word of mouth has been quite a key thing. We put lots of stuff out on our social media channels as well. So they come in, we have a bit of a blether with them about their needs, their abilities, and their aspirations, about what it is they want to actually do. Take a note of their height and their mobility. If there's any issue with mobility, then a step-through frame is definitely going to make life easier for them. And we discuss what options there are in terms of the bikes we have available, how they're going to use it, and them themselves as well. Of course, that bike may or may not be available, so you have to have a look at your calendar and have a booking system in place. So there's then a fair bit of paperwork for both the loanee to go through, if that's the right term, as well as ourselves. So there's a wee bit behind the scenes paperwork to be done as well, and we'll cover this in a second. Then we do a quick assessment of their riding, just to make sure that they can use, that they're safe to ride and that they can use all the controls on the bike themselves. And then basically that's it, and off they go. So just as far as behind the scenes stuff, from the perspective, if you're running this from a hub or from any other organization, then you need to get a kind of confirmation document specifying which bike the person's getting and dates of collection and drop off. Be a wee bit fluid about these, just because other things can come up. But this document will either leave with the person, they've filled it in, you filled it in with them in their hand, or it gets emailed to them if correspondence has been on the phone or through email. We'll hold this on file in the hub, and then a provisional booking gets put on our calendar. We do have a good discussion with them, give them advice on transporting the bike. This is actually a wee bit more complicated than it might seem at first. We've had a number of issues with people trying to hump these bikes on and off roof racks, which has been problematic for them. You can give them a hand at the hub, but I wouldn't advise that you do. But what do they do when they get home or when they're trying to do it themselves? We advise against putting heavy e-bikes on roof racks, but if people really insist on doing it, that's up to them. That often means bikes are getting put in and out the back of cars, which often means wheels are coming off, and people may not be experienced with taking wheels on and off bikes. I know that might sound obvious, but we've had a number of incidents of damage to spokes, rotors and mudguards and so on. So try and make sure people are comfortable about how they're going to transport the bike. And of course, they're heavier than a normal bike as well, so they need to take that into account. On pickup, the customer completes a booking form with their information and contact details, emergency contact details, all that sort of thing. And then we have a handover checklist to keep us right through that process as well. And we'll cover this again in just a wee second. All of these documents we'll make available and can be sent out via DES as well. So we'll organise that. The last point there is just on insurance. It's something that an awful lot of people ask about, and something that you need to be aware of. Our bikes are insured through Fourth Environment Link's own insurance, so long as they're either in a house or a garage somewhere secure. And if they're out and about, that they've used our kryptonite lock in the right way, and then they're covered by us, which is good, because a lot of people were concerned about taking a valuable bike, but they wouldn't be able to afford to replace it, type of thing. But so long as they're being sensible about it, hasn't been an issue so far, but so long as folk are pretty sensible, then it's all been fine. So it can get quite a big job to keep on top of all this, with bikes coming and going. There's 9 bikes in Stirling, there's 9 in Falkirk. It's a lot of coming and going with a lot of different people, so you do need to keep on top of the recording of it all. Our paperwork is all backed up and stored on an Excel spreadsheet as well. This slightly intimidating looking document here. So we get all the customers' details, all their information, and then throughout the whole process, from first correspondence to the bike going out the door, there's dates are assigned to that. It was sort of a checklist of what paperwork has gone out. Do we have it back? Is everything signed off, and all that sort of thing? And we get good accountability of who's been involved with that, just so you can clarify the whole process. There's also, after that, we move on to a calendar. And once you can put a provisional booking on there, and once it's confirmed, it changes colour. You've just got the kind of the dates of the year there. All the bikes are listed. You've got colours just to aid visualizing when bikes are out or not out, when they're available. It just makes it far, far simpler. This was a big process that one of the staff in Falkirk took ages and ages to put together, but it's now going pretty smoothly. One thing I should say about recording all this effort is this tells you how your bikes are, who's taking them and where they're when they're out and all that sort of thing. But do bear in mind, this eats up a lot of staff time. So do keep a timesheet. In terms of staff input, it's probably, as a ballpark figure, we reckon probably about 2 hours per loan of staff time. So that can add up at busy times a year. And also keep a note of repair costs as well. This is something we'll come on to in a moment, but early on in the scheme, we got the funding for the bikes, but we got no funding for staff time or for sort of contingency repairs and so on. So that has caused a few complications down the line. So as far as promoting your e-bike library, so just like any other event that you do, kind of promote it through whatever social media channels you have, promote it itself at your hub or wherever your facilities are, promote it on led rides. You can offer people the chance to have a go on an e-bike. Any outreach events that you do, we've done a lot of employer engagement with various different organisations, NHS, the council, SEPA, just to name but a few. We've done some specific press releases when we formally launched the library, and there's been a trickle of referrals from Home Energy Scotland when people have been in touch with them, and then they have referred them on, customers on to us. Reporting wise, it's not too onerous a task actually. We do some internal reporting within FEL. We keep a note of some statistics and report those to our funders, and just general keeping track of things. Energy Saving Trust, they only want quarterly reports, and they really only want to know who had a bike and for how long, really. They don't need a great deal of detail. So mercifully, the reporting is quick and straightforward, which is always refreshing. Just a few statistics about our library. So from Stirling, there's been 66 loans have gone out. From Falkirk, it's 63. These are all up to the end of last year, just from June. So this is just a 6-month period. 5 of the customers in Stirling had more than one bike, which is kind of the whole point of the operation. People can try different bikes, see how they like them or not, and swap them out if they don't like one. The Stirling bikes have had over 1,000 days use so far. We know an awful lot of people have gone out and fairly promptly bought an e-bike, some through the loan scheme and some not, which is really good that people are getting these bikes and getting more active. And the total distance ridden from the Stirling bikes, 6,558 kilometres. And in case you wonder what that looks like on the globe, there you go. It's quite a long way. And the Falkirk bikes have done 4,632 kilometres. So it's a considerable distance that the bikes have ramped up in 7 months of the year. And actually, before we actually got hold of the Energy Saving Trust funded bikes, we did use the existing e-bikes we had, which had another 17 participants took out 19 separate loans of bikes before we actually had the bikes up and running. So it's been a popular scheme, and word has certainly spread. So if you were thinking of getting started with an e-bike library, there's a few things you need to consider. You need to consider what bikes you actually get, what types and what sizes, makes and models and so on, and start thinking about a maintenance schedule as well, just routine maintenance, and also how you react to any kind of more serious mechanicals that may happen, so kind of responsive maintenance as well. Have contingency in place for when things go wrong, everything from minor repairs like a puncture. Do you send people out with puncture repair kits and spare inner tubes and tyre levers and all that sort of stuff, or do you leave them to their own devices? And what do you do when there's major disasters? So these next 3 pictures were one bike that was ridden at great speed into a wall. Top of the fork got bent, front wheel was pringled, and actually you can't really see it there, but that frame's been condemned as a massive crack just near the steerer tube. So that bike has been taken out of service. So things will happen. You can't always control what people do with the bikes, so do have a think about that. Consider what accessories you may offer. Do you offer trailers? If so, do you kind of do the kind of necessary fitting of the components so they can tow a trailer? Do you have a pannier library as well, so that people can take bags and can carry stuff more easily? Or do you have bike packing bags or anything like that? Do consider staff time. Do you have the time to actually administer a scheme like this? And costs, both in terms of staff time and in terms of repairs. Our repairs have not been too expensive so far, but that could change, and it wouldn't take much for the cost to suddenly ramp up. So do give that some thought. Other things to consider is try and not let people do overly outlandish modifications. We've had a few bikes have come back quite badly damaged by people doing modifications of pedals, changing saddles, putting child seats on and things like that. Decide yourself how far you want to go with that, how much control you try and have over it. Consider theft. There's a great deal of trust within the scheme, so consider what might happen if a bike is stolen, considering getting the bikes marked or registered in some way. And yeah, just kind of try and think what you would do if a bike did disappear. And also think about discussing with the people taking the bike where they're actually going to store it. You know, is it just going to be chained to a lamppost outside, or is it going to be in their house? So people do have to take a certain amount of responsibility with security. So do give that some thought as well. So as far as future plans for the scheme are concerned, then we're just carrying on through 2020. It's business as usual with the general public. So there's still this big range of bikes that are available for folk to use. We're trying to work more with businesses with offering them loans of e-bikes, but we've also got some e-cargo bikes as well, and we should really be pushing that to see if more and more people would be interested in using those with the obvious benefits that brings. Through personal contacts, we ended up loaning an e-bike to a GP practice in Clackmannan and Kincardine, and they absolutely loved it. They were using it for house calls and actually found it very, very useful. They're interested in buying their own actually, but until then they're going to take a loan of another one. And I think that could be really, really interesting to see if more GP practices wanted to get involved and just have a bike available for non-urgent work. It could be pretty good scheme for everybody involved, really. So that's definitely, there'll be more of that in the pipeline. And then there's some major plans afoot at Forth Valley Royal Hospital. They're working with a couple of different patient groups to see about getting them quite long-term loans of e-bikes. So there's a scheme where I think it's about 20 e-bikes are going to be available from the big hospital in Larbert, which could make a huge difference to some of their patients. So that's about us. There's the contact details for the Stirling Active Travel Hub. I'm sure if you look online, you'll find details for Falkirk as well. There's our social media accounts as well. So thank you for listening to that. And if you have any queries, I'm sure you can get in touch and we can help you out. Thank you very much and all the best. Cheers.